Well, in just minutes, we will be joined by former and retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, where she will be breaking down some of the investigation that happened and is happening with this Trump rally shooting. I'm also going to get her take, kind of like we did with Secret Service agent Jim Rathman when we had him on the show. There's obviously a lot of new and breaking information that's starting to come out in this case. And I'll just show you here's one piece of information here. The shooter was actually on the Secret Service radar for over 3 hours. 3 hours. He was on the radar. This is an evil atrocity that should have never, ever happened. And so I'm very glad to have Jennifer Coffindaffer joining us on the stream, sharing her great insight. Not only is she a retired FBI agent, she also is, uh, I guess I'd call it a firearm expert. And so she's going to be able to pick up some things maybe that some of us haven't been able to pick up or to distinguish. I'll show you one of those things because there's a lot that's been going on in this, but one of the big discretions were how many shots were there, where were they coming from, and so this right here is going to share every single shot that was made on that particular day. Listen up, and it's going to be on the screen also. So there's 11 shots. 11 shots. Where are all these 11 shots coming from? Let's listen to them again. And this when Jennifer joins in just a minute, this is one of the things I'm going to be asking her about. 11 shots. And I don't know if she'll be able to, but some people can actually distinguish the different types of sounds. Oh,
Oops.
hey Jennifer, are you there?
Hey, yes, hi.
How's it going? We're live on the air, and I
Oh,
just
we
want to
are?
thank you so much for joining me today.
Goodness, fixing the hair. Hi,
Oh,
good to be
hey, me
here.
too. I gotta get it tidied up here. Well, as always, we're so glad that you are willing to join us, one of our favorite guests, if not our number one favorite guest. And I,
Oh,
in particular, want to talk about this situation that happened at the Donald Trump rally. Not only are you a retired and very highly esteemed FBI agent, you're a firearms expert. And so there's several questions that I've had about the sounds that I'm hearing, the shots that are going off, and then the protocol that we had a Secret Service agent on earlier this week that he went through and talked about missed opportunities, and then maybe even from the FBI agent perspective, talk through what that investigation is looking like on the back end. So we have a lot to cover, but
yes.
just as we're getting started, I'd love to hear your initial thoughts about this evil atrocity that took place.
Right. So thank you for having me, and thank you to all your audience members for joining in today. So, first, I was very blessed to be the first woman ever on the FBI director's personal protection detail and travel with Comey. And when you have a personal protection detail that you're in charge of, the most important thing is, I believe, the advance. And there's a particular team that's called the advance team for any particular protection detail. And they go in advance of the operation and they set everything up. They figure out where the points of concern are. They figure out the points of egress, the points of where best to have him be on the podium. A to Z, they're in charge. They're also in charge of all the liaison with local and state law enforcement. So my first impression was, Tyler, that whoever did this advance either did a very terrible job or that the plan they put together was not followed.
Right. Yeah, I think that's part of it that makes it so interesting. I'm going to put it just on the screen for just a split second, but this was a news article that came out. It says, unbelievable. The shooter was on the Secret Service radar for 3 hours. New information about that actually came out today, saying that they listed him initially as suspicious in 3 hours, 1 hour up to, and then about 20 minutes before the shooting took place, Fox News this morning was reporting that he went from being suspicious to being a threat. I mean, they had even in that 20-minute margin to figure something out. What happened? Where was the drop ball?
There were a lot of drop balls here from what I can see. I mean, first of all, there should have been somebody, two agents slash officers up on that roof. That is just that's just number one. Point number one. That is what we call the high ground. And in any operation, you want to be control of the high ground. That's whether you're in a military operation, you're in a tactical operation, you're in a protection operation, that has to happen. So the Secret Service did not have that high ground and that vantage point. That's number one. Number two, once anybody is identified as either an unknown suspicious or unknown, I mean, certainly if they already identified him as a threat, and remember, we know he had a field ocular device,
Yep.
that you can look and see
Rangefinder.
far
Yep.
away, a rangefinder. They also, from my understanding, identified a controller that could be used to ignite an IED, which they believe might have been in his vehicle. And he had, we're finding out so much information about his relationship with IEDs. And so, in any event, at that point, remember the Secret Service snipers that are on top of that other building, their optics are amazing, Tyler. I mean, you can see like you and me. It's just like right here. They should be able to shoot accurately up to 300 yards. This was 164 yards. Some people say 150. I think I got it down to about 164 away. So they should be able to see everything easily on that roof and what that individual was doing. I know they could have possibly thought he was a friendly when he was up on that roof, but when you talk about, and I posted about this yesterday, the 3-hour window that they had identified an issue, immediately it should have been phoned into the command post, and immediately after that, Tyler, they should have arranged for either a Secret Service agent or a law enforcement officer to approach him, identify him, and find out what in the heck he was doing there.
Absolutely. I'm just playing this kind of people getting some of those visuals that you're talking about as it's going on. This is something that's mapping that out. I believe it's a total miracle. I know you're a woman of faith, and the same way that I feel this thing that took place just by the maneuver of a tiny, tiny, tiny inch of his head, he misses this shot. And you're a firearms expert. Talk about an AR-15 from a football field away. I mean, that's a pretty easy shot, right? That's a chip shot on a golf course.
I would say it's more like a 7-iron for the golfers in the crowd, but it's certainly a very doable shot. For anyone who has shot rifles, you use a scope, and a scope makes it just so easy. It's literally putting what you want to hit in the crosshairs. It's not like an iron sight where you have a rear sight and a front sight that you're trying to align. It's just that easy. I don't know what optic he had specifically on this. I mean, I wonder if he had even some sort of laser optic. That would be quite a long distance to have a good laser optic. It would
This is
cost
kind of what you're talking about. I have a mock-up of that.
Exactly. That's exactly what you're looking at through your scope, pretty much. And so you can see this is very easy shooting, and this weapon is quite capable of shooting from this distance, which is not far for a rifle shot. Now, if we were talking about a handgun, whole new subject matter. But this is a long gun rifle that is meant to shoot accurately from this distance.
Well, I also have just some concern about the number of shots that were reported versus the number of shots that were heard. And I'm sure that you've done this, but I sat there and counted shot after shot after shot after shot, sound of weapon versus sounds of other weapons. And I want to pull this up as well, where it's just a breakdown of the shots that were fired. And I'm hoping you can do something that I can't do. And you might not be able to, but I believe in you. And that is help me to distinguish with these different shots that are going off, What are those sounds? And so this is a breakdown of what you're going to hear be 11 shots. And a big pause, and then shot 11. So I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it breaks down shot 1, 2, 3, shot 4, 5, 6 with the timestamp, shot 9 and 10 go off almost immediately, and then a wait for shot 11.
Well, to distinguish between these three different rifles that I believe shot, right? The two of the Secret Service and then Thomas Crook's shots, there's no way to distinguish other than we know he took the first shots. So I believe certainly that first succession, and it also sounds further away and more muffled. So the further away, more muffled shots are certainly his shots. And then following that, we hear the Secret Service shots. Why that one shot lagged is very interesting to me, because it makes me think that they possibly still saw movement after they shot.
One thing that was interesting when that shot 11 goes off, the entire crowd's attention that you see on the screen goes from looking sort of in the direction of the assassin or would-be assassin to the opposite direction of the crowd. I don't know if you paid attention to that part of it, but they're all looking sort of one way. When shot 11 goes off, you see all of their faces turn and move the other way.
Yeah, let's watch again because I find this very interesting too. Wondering if, and just letting you know, as a sniper, I would believe that the sniper that was up there would be able to take out his target in one shot. I've also seen the photograph, it's gruesome, of Thomas Crook's dead. And it's hard to identify because it was a headshot in the T-zone, it looked like to me. And so there's a lot of blood. But that could have literally been just one shot. Let me listen again close. This is the first time I'm hearing this setup. It's really good. To me, and we're going to find out, but it seemed like, I think it's the last three shots have a different sound.
Okay. Well, it's on the screen. I don't know if you can see the screen. You might not be able to, but it's identifying the unique weapon with a
Oh,
color
here
on
we
the
go.
on the
Okay, good.
screen.
At least
Yeah.
I'm right there. Okay. Mhm.
And then there's a big break, almost 15 seconds or 10 seconds, and that's when that other shot comes.
And is the other shot green, back to the other initial
Yep.
shooter? So it seems to me that those first 8 shots are of our suspect, 9, 10 are of the snipe or of the Secret Service, and then shot 11 is the first shot of the service. And as I mentioned, sometimes if you still see movement, and there could be involuntary movement, there could be actual movement that's deliberate by the individual you shot, I could see them wanting to take a third shot to make sure they had incapacitated the shooter.
Very interesting. And I think today, there's mounting pressure from lawmakers and other people to say that the Secret Service director needs to resign. She did go on an interview and saying the buck stops with her, as any leader should do. It is the case. There's actually no way around it. It's not even good leadership. It's just the truth. She is responsible. There were maybe reasons why there were less security for Donald Trump on this particular day. Again, not valid reasons. But I think one of the most perplexing comments that she gave, especially after I've seen many, many pictures of cows on rooftops, by saying that that rooftop was too sloped for Secret Service when there's two Secret Service right there behind Donald Trump on an even more sloped roof. Can you explain the rationale? Did she misspeak? Was there reasoning?
Well, if you look at her background is in security in private industry. And that's always a big problem, in my opinion. I don't think you can come from the outside world of private industry. You can do it the other way, be law enforcement and go to private industry. But to put her in charge of the Secret Service, having never worn the badge, having never been on a Secret Service protection detail, at least to my
Well,
understanding,
she was in the Secret Service for Dick Cheney in 1995.
for how long?
She served, I'm not sure, but she was involved in the Secret Service. She joined in 95, and then she was involved at least till 2001 with when she was guarding Dick Cheney.
So 5 or 6 years. Okay. This is what I'm trying to say. So thank you for letting me know that, because I didn't know that. I strictly looked very recently and saw how she got her position from a private company. So that's good to hear. I'm sorry. Thanks for correcting me there, Tyler. But I could tell you, in my opinion, your first about 5 to 10 years on a job, you are just learning in a job like this. Every day, every assignment, every situation, you learn something new. And it takes really years to have the experience, in my opinion, to be the director of an organization that is charged with such an important role. So you can be on a detail in certain capacity, but never have served in other capacities, especially if you were only around for a short amount of time. Now, if she was around for beyond 10 years, then that was probably enough time to have the experience to take on this job. But I wonder, because to me, what she commented was didn't make any sense from anybody who's done the job. Because if you've done this job, you don't say, oh, sorry, boss, that it's a little too sloped. I can't go up there. That's not the answer. The answer is we serve and we protect at all costs. Sometimes that means you're on the ground holding a position in
Right.
dirt, fire ants. So you're hot. Sometimes you're cold.
I
Sometimes
mean,
you're
the job of a president is to travel the world, protect the United States of America's interests, and that includes safety and economically. And so the Secret Service should go into some of the most dangerous situations anywhere on the globe, regardless of the circumstances, and be able to provide full protection. I mean, just a couple of months ago, Joe Biden went into a war zone of Ukraine to meet with Zelensky. You're telling me that there's not sloped roofs and dangerous people hanging out every which way? So you're exactly right about that. It's like this is a field, a fairground in a small town in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I let me just tell you, from the comment she made, I took that as somebody without field experience. You're telling me, though, that she at least served as a capacity, as a person who provided protection. I hope that's what you're telling me, because remember, the Secret Service has 3 different areas. Some provide protection, and that's the largest contingent. The others do credit card fraud investigations, and the others do counterfeit investigations. The whole reason the Secret Service was started was because of counterfeiting, and that was their initial prescribed duties. And it's expanded since then. Obviously, they are the ones that are solely responsible for protection of the president and the vice president and their relatives and things. But I can
Well,
tell
she
you,
just
it
doing a
didn't make
quick
any
check.
sense to me.
Just doing a quick check, it actually says that she also was assigned to Joe Biden's protective detail. So it sounds like she was on vice presidential detail
No.
for Dick Cheney and Joe Biden. So that'd be 20 years of experience.
Well, if that's the case, then I was hoping to give her a pass and say, listen, she was just in private practice and didn't know. She should know better than to make that comment. I cannot explain a comment like that because it makes no sense.
Makes absolutely no sense. And I think it leaves Americans feeling confused, uh, unsafe. Think about it like this: if something would have happened to Donald Trump, the likelihood of a civil war breaking out, I think, is high. And here's why: the reason why I say that, because he had yet to announce his vice president. The Supreme Court had just passed some amendments saying that the president has immunity and can do things in his power. He'd just been on record multiple times saying that he felt like Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. And so there's people all around the country would have felt like this grand conspiracy broke out and a president used immunity powers to try to take out somebody he saw as a threat and was also weak in the polls. I'm not saying that would have happened. I'm just saying in my opinion, there wasn't a clear successor to take over the run for president if something would have happened to Donald Trump. And I think mass chaos would have broken out in the land. And instead, what we saw was the hand of God maneuver someone's head and just clip the ear, and then with strength brought stability, I think, to the people that were there and then to a nation. That was powerful. It's one of the most iconic imageries that I could see. But whoever's in that role of Secret Service, they're protecting the president, they're protecting a nation.
No, I agree. I agree. And it's mind boggling to somebody who has done the job how that roof wasn't covered. And by the way, I heard her on ABC News, the morning show, I believe it was, say, and I posted this on my Twitter, that they recognized that as a building that needed covered, but they decided to do it from the inside. Do you see
Yes.
why? I mean, those are her words. It was too sloped, and they decided it would be enough to do from the inside. And then just now, before I came on here, I just saw another release that was the spokesman, I think, for the Secret Service concurred, is that the local department, which is teeny, said we don't have the manpower.
Right.
And they knew no one was covering that
Right.
at all.
So the local department had 12 officers full time that worked for it. They said, "Hey, we really can only provide assistance with parking. There's 25,000, 30,000 people coming. We have 12 people. We can help with that. Also with everything else that they have to deal with going on in their county." So I think they were very clear and upfront that they weren't able to provide the necessary protection that was needed in that circumstance. You're absolutely right.
And that's when you reach out to state authorities, sheriff's offices. You reach out to other municipalities as that advance team. Once you find out that you're only going to get 3 or 4 officers from where you're going, and you've only got, say, 10 people on the detail, that's when you say, and I don't know what the number was, but 15, it doesn't matter. It wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And that's when you reach out and you let your superiors know, we need more manpower, and you make it happen. And they will make it happen. This isn't difficult. It's just more work. And it's astonishing to me. The other thing I don't like to see, Tyler, is this breakdown of communication.
Yeah.
I've heard sloped roofs, I've heard falling from the inside, and now we told them there was no manpower, and they confirmed that. Secret Service confirmed that. This sounds like the communication upheaval that was happening during this operation.
Well, then there was the early reports too of one of the local officers did try to confront Crooks.
Right?
Basically feels like and I've watched the local official make a video on this and share. It basically felt like he said scared him off with a rifle. And it's like it's like I talked about it with a friend yesterday. It's like, did that officer just decide, I don't want to lose my family over this and just take off? If you fall off of a ladder, which apparently was what was reported, and you know that a man's about to try to assassinate the presidential candidate and former president, then you get back up on that ladder. That's my thought. That's what you've signed up for.
This is how I think that might have come down. My understanding is there were 2 officers, and there was one below the other officer, sort of keeping him in place. He looks over, probably says something. Crooks then aims the rifle at him, and then he ducks and covers because he doesn't want to get his head blown off. I think then Crooks realizes, and this, we're going to find out more about this, but this just makes sense to me. So this is my hypothet. I think at that point, Crooks says, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to do my mission. I got a cop right here. And that's when he peels off those shots. Boom, 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 boom. That's when he takes action. And that's likely also why he missed.
Yeah.
Rushed.
Well, I mean, he was awfully close.
He was within an inch, and I agree with you. I called it a miracle. It's interesting that I called it a miracle on Twitter, and you wouldn't believe how many people came on my page. It said, this was no miracle. This was a shame. This was no miracle.
Terrible.
This was a mistake. In other words, they're condoning and backing his murder. And I don't care who it is up there. I mean, how can you condone that?
Yeah, I would have been equally if this was Joe Biden's situation, I would
Me
be
too.
equally, as invested in talking about this because it's an American issue. It's not a political issue. And I do think in some regards the media is to blame about that. We had Joy Reid from the MSNBC, who by the way sometimes has the same haircut as Donald Trump, which is unusual because he talks so much trash about him. But she today was making a video saying that Joe Biden had COVID and that's the same thing equal to Trump getting shot. And that she even made a video today saying that maybe Trump wasn't even shot, that he went down and scraped his own ear so that there was blood coming out. This is MSNBC, one of the legacy corporate media companies that's perpetuating the kind of nonsense that the exaggerated version manifests in those types of comments on your Twitter and on my YouTube channel. And I think that that's the kind of thing that's detrimental to the fabric of our society. I think they painted the portrait of Donald Trump to be this caricature of a version of that he really is, and it isn't. And that's it, and I think maybe conservative media has done the same thing in some ways to Joe Biden. And so we have to tone down the rhetoric, even as people, me and you, toning it down. That way, the
Mhm.
people who are the most exaggerated versions of it don't feel entitled. And I made the case, and I don't know what you think about this. It's controversial. Every time I've ever talked about this in the 2 years that I've been doing this on YouTube, it always is hit with some backlash. But we don't know what the ramifications of having realistic video games are for a generation that spent their childhood playing very gruesome video games that rewards killing to now grow up and to be young adults. We don't know what the ramifications of that are because that level of realistic video games didn't exist when I was a young man, but they certainly did when I was a child, but they certainly did when Thomas Crooks was. And I know that there's been reports from internal agencies like yours that you've been a part of that do report that there's a high violence attached to video game usage. We've seen it in the case of Ethan Crumley, for example, the school shooter out of Michigan.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really good point, and this is why you get desensitized. It's a hard word to say. You do. I mean, you do as an agent. You shouldn't have to see gruesome and gore over and over again because then all of a sudden it becomes more normal, and that's what does happen on these video games. I have been guilty of it myself. My son might even be in there playing one right now as we speak. He certainly is a big gamer, if you will. But I do agree with you that we were outside playing kick the can and tag, literally, and hide and go seek, and that's what we were doing as kids. At least that's what I was doing, running all around. You only came home at 5 o'clock, right? You at lunch you came home in the summers, and at 5 o'clock you need to be home, and that's because it was dinner time. And other than that, you were running around playing with your friends. And now it's unbelievable what
Yeah.
they're saying. So I think you bring up a good point.
I'm certainly not making the jump to say if you're playing video games that, you're empowered then to go do this. But I do think for some people that have a tendency to lean towards violence, where there may have been some safety mechanisms built into the way culture, society function, those same mechanisms don't exist in that same way in 2024. And we don't know the long-term effects of the way that we perpetuated media and video games in the way that we have. I have another question that I want to ask you, and I'm going to play a series of just 3 videos. And the 3 videos that I'm going to play for you are all eyewitness reports that had mentioned seeing a second shooter, and they specifically mention it being on the water tower. And I don't know if you've seen these. I find it to be very compelling. I'm not saying that there was. I've had conversations with other experts, sent them these videos, and try to get some feedback from it. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on what they say, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts on uh, the validity and reliability of eyewitnesses after traumatic experiences. So here's number one.
Fence where
Let
the
me
other
rewind.
shooter was. Fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence. And still, obviously, initial reports.
So there's 2 shooters. One I heard by the fence. One I heard by the water tower. Okay.
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, "It's the sniper! It's the sniper!" And he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what he was firing towards the water tower. Okay. So there's 2.
Sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here. He killed a gentleman in the water tower here.
What you know?
So there you have three eyewitness reports coming out and saying that there was somebody in the water tower. Can we trust these eyewitness reports, or is it a case of confusion because of the trauma that they've been experiencing?
Typically, eyewitness reports like this are not very reliable. That's just the facts. And everything's happening so quickly, and there are a lot of different things they're focusing on: visually, hearing, touching, feeling. And that's the reason it's not reliable. The other thing is, in high stress situations, and this happens to everyone, you get what we call tunnel vision. I have these classes that I run people through all the time, and I have an active shooter come in with a paint gun and reel off shots, and then afterwards he runs out, and sometimes it's girl, sometimes it's guy, and then afterwards, and then I duck, and I have a particular thing I say, and no one can ever in the history of training 1,000 people have they been able to tell me what was said. They'll get bits and pieces. Oh, he had a red bandana. And then somebody else says, oh, no, that's a yellow bandana. And somebody else says, he didn't even have a bandana on.
Mhm.
And this isn't a real shooting, and this is somebody that's right up next to them. And then I'll say, what did I say?
Yeah.
And no one can remember, right? So maybe some person that has a good audio. But what my point is it's been tried and tested and true. We all get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Law enforcement
It-
officers do too.
When I took criminal justice classes in my undergraduate, that was pretty much the consensus. We would do exercises like you're talking about, and kind of like surprise things, and then we were supposed to give a report as a class about what we just experienced, and we weren't right. And so I think what happens, especially when there's an absence of communication like we've talked about, there is a need, it feels like, to try to fill in the blanks, and it ends up becoming a lot of times a conspiracy. We see it in the true crime world all the time, where people just start filling in the blanks with things that maybe don't have validity, or they haven't tried to schedule the reason why. That was just my thought whenever I heard those. It's like, well, I went back and listened to those 11 shots and whatever, and I just couldn't make sense of it. I didn't think there was somebody in the water tower, or we certainly would have heard about it. Is there any time where the FBI or Secret Service or something like that would conceal information about a second assassin or potential assassin if there was something like that, or is there a compelling to be forthright with the public?
Well, I think I'm going to have to answer that in two parts. First of all, the FBI typically just won't answer anything. They don't typically talk. They don't give information, especially when something is ongoing. But you saw early in this case, they came out and said this was a isolated lone wolf, if you will, that acted, and they have no information of any sort of conspiracy. And I think they did that for a couple reasons. First of all, the reason they knew so quickly is because they are hugely force multiplied. There are thousands of agents, analysts that were working on that we call it ringing the bell. The bell rung, everybody came, and everybody had an assignment. And that's why they were able to make these determinations so quickly. It's not one or two people, it's hundreds of people working on this case and funneling the information to the individuals so that they could decipher and make an announcement. That's number one. Number two, when it's an ongoing investigation and they are trying to figure everything out, they will withhold information, but the Bureau is not known for ever coming forward and saying a out and out lie. They just won't say anything. And the Secret Service, remember, isn't at all involved in the investigation. They're witnesses. It's solely the FBI's responsibility to conduct an attempted assassination investigation. So Secret Service has absolutely no role other than as the witnesses. What happened? What did you do? What did you see? Where did you go? Where's your op plan? That sort of thing.
Okay, very interesting. Another video that I want to show you, and I don't necessarily agree with the statements that are on the screen of this video, but they catch some residue, it looks like, on the back end of a rail. And I wanted you, just from your firearms expert standpoint, maybe to take a look at it and and tell me if you're seeing anything yourself.
Something that said, take a look what happened.
Okay, you kind of hear that shot, and then you see on the backside of that rail.
See something that said, take a look what happened. What happened? Take a look what happened.
So your question is, what blew off that rail?
Was that just the shot that missed Trump? And
I think that's exactly what it is. I think it hits the railing. And so you have everything from the paint, from the dust, from whatever is on there blow out. And remember, as this projectile is going, it is at such a high velocity as it's traveling. Whatever it hits, there are, all those particles and paint and everything is going to blow off of there. I would love to see that railing up close and see how much that projectile hit that railing. That's what it looks like to me.
when you see this man go down, one thing that I notice is nobody else in the crowd is reacting yet. And so over to the left, sort of where there's a walkway in between, there's a man that's wearing white. He goes down. I'm wondering if he's just, has fast reflexes, or is he potentially one of the ones that was in critical condition? I know he wasn't the one who passed away, because the one who passed away was I believe, sitting in another spot.
What happened?
Yeah. I wish I could see him up closer.
Really see something that said, take a look what happened.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell, right?
Really hard to tell, but to me, when I see that, that does not look like somebody ducking. It looks like somebody who got shot. That's what it looks like to me.
That's kind of what I was thinking, because he goes down pretty quickly, and then, as he's going down, no one else is really reacting or going down quite yet. And so either he has like extremely fast reflexes, or I think he was likely hit.
It looks to me like he's hit. That's what my best reflection of what I see there. And then, as I said, it looks like that projectile is hitting that railing. I was wondering, show that railing again. Is that all freshly painted?
Yeah, I'll go back to it. I think it probably was.
I mean, this is a big event, especially for such a little venue, that I can just imagine they wanted everything perfect. And I was looking at that, trying to see if that looked like fresh paint.
Well, I think they brought this in from the outside, that this grandstand and these bleachers are not normally here.
That makes sense. But it is a fairground, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like the county fairground.
Yeah. So you would expect them to have bleacher setups like this for watching showing of animals and barrel racing and everything else that goes on at a fair, potentially.
So one more thing that I was hoping to do with you, and if people maybe have some questions in the comments, if you guys want to send those on super chats, it just makes it easy for us to see them. I want to put up the video of the actual, sequence of events that we see from camera of what happened in Donald Trump. Maybe you can just break it down for us from your perspective as somebody who's done personal detail, and then if there's anything that catches your attention or eyes on it, I think would be helpful for us. I did this with the Secret Service agent. It'd be interesting to see what, if anything, sticks out differently to you.
President in the history of our country took over, and look what
And just tell me to pause if there's a chance where you want me to pause.
Okay.
happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
You see how, you can pause there. Do you see the delayed, what seems like a delayed reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And, just even the sound delay, right? The
Mhm.
delay of sound popping and then that bullet traveling. And then, so in other words, that bullet is already way down range before we're computing that pop sound.
Mhm.
And it's a miracle, though, for me, and you brought this up early, it's just that slight head turn. If he's like this, Tyler, it's right in the T zone, right in his temple, and he is dead and dropped right there. That's exactly where we're trained to shoot because it causes complete paralysis and you can't be able to
What
do it.
happened?
I mean, look, I have a video of the overhead of it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's this is such great video work you've done. I haven't really seen these videos. This is really great.
Just
Um,
boom. I mean,
this
if it's a half a second sooner, it's there. I mean, a half a second sooner, it's there.
Yeah, and we're talking about two things, right? That were miracles. One, the timing of it all, and then two, the movement of it all.
Yeah.
So he moved at the right time and he moved in the right space, or he would 100% be dead.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you're kind of acknowledging that. Another thing too that a lot of people don't realize is that where the individual that actually had passed away was sitting in the bleachers, and it's really unfortunate, but it could have been that there was a bullet that he blocked that maybe would have hit Trump. I don't know if people paid attention to that, but he kind of was in the on the other side of the crowd where it actually went in through that way. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's not right behind him.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people thought at first, but I'll put that up on the screen too, just so we can see. We'll go back to that video in just a second, but this circle here indicates where the individual Corey, the brave father that was trying to protect his family, actually received that bullet wound, and so it's almost like he blocked a bullet that maybe would have hit Trump. I don't know for sure. Maybe it wouldn't have because it was so far off and there was too much bleachers and things like that in the way. But it at least was on that side, even closer to the shooter, not on the other side of Trump.
Well, and that's what I wanted to bring up in terms of why I do believe the shooter got rushed. I think he was capable, as I said. Basically, if you practice, you're very capable of hitting a shot like this with the right sight system. And I think he got rushed because, well, we know he got rushed
Right.
because
And
there's
then the
up there on him.
Okay, so we'll go back to this Trump video. You can just tell me when to
worst
pause
president in the
when you
history
think
of our
it's good.
country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Right there. So down, do you hear the Secret Service saying down and jumping on him quickly? I
Yeah.
felt that the immediate detail within that inner perimeter did a really excellent job.
Right.
I also find it very interesting, of course, the confusion of everyone in the crowd. To me, you see in so many mass shootings and people just go hysteria. They, go in mass. People get hurt. They stampede. You did not see that here at all, and I wondered if it was because of confusion. Could it be fireworks or something like that? Remember, the mind's just thinking like this, right? So
Putting the pieces together. Yeah,
putting
I think that those are fair assumptions of like, hey, why did this crowd remain steady eddies and not panic? Um, I One thing that was interesting that the Secret Service agent Jim Rathman said whenever he was on the stream was
Mhm.
that just having watched the way that Donald Trump's presented and done things before, he recognizes that there's an alert. He sees the snipers getting prepared, and that's an unusual sight for him. So Donald Trump's also on alert in this moment, which I think was an interesting perspective that I
Hmm.
didn't realize. So Donald Trump's like kind of not wanting to freak the crowd out, but clearly kind of scanning around and seeing what's going on himself.
So I don't make that out personally, but that doesn't mean that I'm not wrong. To me, it's an absolute moment of what is happening, what just happened. And of course, I hear that agent say down, I believe, and grab him and pull him out of his shoes. I mean, really the violence at which Trump and anyone else is overtaken in a case like this, in terms of what we're taught to get that protectee down and surrounded and out of there quickly. It's hard to describe, but as you know, he had his shoes knocked off.
Right. Which I have questions about. So I
Down,
believe it, and tell
covering
me
him.
what you think this American flag thing in the front, is that a bulletproof shield?
Where is this you're pointing to? Right.
So you see the stars, the blue
Yes.
stripe with the
Oh, yeah.
stars.
Uh-huh.
When we had the Jim Rathman on, he made mention that there's certain things that are protective, and that's why Trump goes down. So the assumption that I made was, well, maybe that's kind of a bulletproof blocker, so he can get down and it prevents any assault from that angle.
I don't think that's a blocker per se, but I could imagine that they have a shield system behind that. So I just think that's decorative, but I think behind that there should be some sort of shield protection, ballistic protection. But remember, not all shields are made alike. And so some that protect well against 45 caliber, larger bullets, do not protect against rifle rounds. So it's, it depends on the grade and it depends on the bullet, but they certainly have him down, I believe, behind a protective shield behind that. I agree with you.
Yeah. So there's a human shield and then that protective shield. And as you see, they're coming as quick as they possibly can. When you were guarding Comey, was there ever a time where you had to do something like this, kind of rush in?
No, thankfully, we never had a situation. There was one situation that we certainly rushed him out of a situation, but never did we have shooting or anything like this. But that leads me to one point I really want to make that I forgot to make early on. The minute that you identify something as certainly as being a threat and even as being unknown, you get your protectee down. They don't like it when you say, come over here. You're getting in a hard space. You're getting off the stage and we're going to protect you till we figure it all out. That is mind-boggling. I don't know if your Secret Service, Mr. Rathman, said something about that, but I can't believe that wasn't done. You don't have to take the shot, but you have to get your protectee out of the zone.
Yeah, he mentions just the sheer amount of time. We counted the seconds that it took. It was absurd.
It's that's the other thing, that unless you train like this or are in these situations, seconds are forever. 1/1000 is forever, and so much can be done in that amount of time. The only thing I would say is I was disappointed they didn't get him out quicker, but we have to consider a couple of things. Look, he's almost 80.
Yeah.
He's a large man. They
Yeah.
wanted him to crouch down. Think
Yeah.
of your 7-year-old grandfather or whoever, Tyler, right? Older people you've been around. It's hard for them to crouch, and it's certainly
Right.
hard for them to crawl like that on the move and to have people draped around them. So I think there's something that
I made
has
mention of that. He had 10 large people dive on him. I'm like, his body has to be sore.
yeah,
I'm
it's
sore. He's not, he's like a football player all of a sudden, getting tackled.
Yeah, so there's all these human things. The other thing is, I know people are making a big deal about, oh, they let him, do the fight. It's not that they let him do that. It happens in a second, right? Fight. What did that just take me? 2 seconds,
Yeah, let's watch that whole sequence because they should have really got him up and out, and there should have been no time for that. But he takes control of the whole situation. Let's watch that.
So this is, Tyler, where your training is really coming in.
Right. Like
You're not. The other thing is, yeah, and you can stop it right here, but, and this is one of the hardest things to do, is you have certain fields of fire, certain visual areas you're responsible for, and you can see that everybody's kind of lost their focus, right? Who's looking in the back there? To make sure that, because nobody at this point knows, what if there's 2 or 3 gunmen?
exactly.
Where exactly is that shot coming from? We all know now, but they didn't really know then. I mean, the snipers knew, but do these guys even really know where it's coming from? And one person should be looking into the crowd, one person this way, one person this way, one person this way, and they should be getting him out of there. There's a lot of responsibility, and it's your training, Tyler. So now you're in the thick of it, and your training should step in.
And
Did he
unfortunately,
comment
there's
about that?
somebody who runs up on the stage who clearly forgot their training, who says, "What are we supposed to be doing? How are we doing it? Where are we going?"
I heard him say that. I know.
I'm like, that's what you have been paid to learn and do for the past how many ever years you've been on this."
I mean, this is going to become a training video for not only Secret Service, but for the FBI's protection detail, the so the FBI does the Attorney General and the Director. Those are the 2 main protection details that the FBI is responsible for. And, look at what we're seeing here. This is going to be used as a training video.
Oh, when you're ready, on you. Ready, move, up, move, go. Hawkeye's here.
Hawkeye's here. Yeah, we finally got the SWAT agents in to guard.
And those SWAT agents, my guess is that they're not Secret Service, because I felt like the protocol would be different. They'd be closer to that inner circle, maybe. But I'd love your assessment of that.
Well, this looks like they didn't train for this situation. In other words, in advance, and that's what I always say, the advance, the training, the preparation, what was done. It doesn't look like they ever did what we call a walkthrough. You actually literally chalk it out on the ground. Okay, there's 3 of us. If he's shot at, you're going there, you're going here, and I'm going here, and we're doing that. So to me, this whole presentation, although they put their lives on the line, because again, nobody knew who was going to be shooting, and they're literally a human shield that you're going to see come up, and these guys are standing in the line of fire too. It doesn't look orchestrated like I would normally see.
Right.
Which is, coming up in a line and dispersing and having every angle guarded. I don't see that. It looks like they didn't practice it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's why that's kind of my guess, and that's why I was like, I don't know if they're Secret Service on these SWAT.
We are watching a rally right now. Former President Trump was just in the middle of a
Okay,
speech.
you can stop there. You can stop there. See the man on the corner?
Mm-hmm.
He's looking behind himself. I saw him look to the left. I saw him look straight ahead. He's looking all over. Your field of fire has to be disciplined, because if you're not disciplined in your field of fire while you're looking back at what your buddy's field of fire is, that's when you get shot, or that's when somebody pops out of the crowd. And so this is concerning to me as a SWAT operator. I want to see each of these guys with a very specific field of fire that they're watching, so that the protectee with his inner circle can be moved, right? Because they're supposed to be moved without worrying about being shot, because these guys are protecting them.
Yeah, so they have a very defined vision protocol. They have a segment, 45 degrees or whatever they're supposed to be scanning. Very interesting. Okay.
When what sounded like possible shots were fired, we saw the former president, take cover. Security is now surrounding him and getting him out of the event.
Let me get my shoes. Hold on, your head is bloody. So we gotta move.
Let me get my shoes. Did his shoe? Is he wearing loafers? They just popped off. Did they take his shoes off?
I don't know if you saw the video, but there's a video when he gets moved off the stage, Tyler, and the shoes, they throw the shoes down. At least one of them I saw, and it looked like a sole actually popped out of it. So they look like not tied shoes, but kind of the slip-on man shoes. It was a little hard to see, but that's what it looked like to me. who cares about the shoes? But that's literally, protectees do things like this. What about this? What about this? I want to do this. And so you're trying to control them and tell them what to do in mass chaos, as you're seeing here. The biggest problem I see here is who is protecting their six, their, noon, their three, their, who's protecting the peripheral? No one. I mean,
Yeah.
those guys with guns are all over the place.
This woman that's up front is short, maybe tall for a woman. I'm not sure because uh, President Trump's 6'4". You are not known for your height,
No.
and James Comey is known for his height. Was
Yes.
there ever a discrepancy in that? Just knowing that this is a very tall man that I may have to give personal protection to in that way.
Yeah, I mean, certainly we had a lot of jokes about that because I am 5'1" and he was about 6'7". I think with his shoes on, 6'8", something like that. He was very tall.
Tall.
But the bottom line is, are you as an agent that's assigned to him? Do you have your head about you? And are you going to be protecting him properly? Are you going to go to the space you're supposed to be in? Are you going to come to his aid and not panic, as I've seen happen, where people, and not on the director's detail, but I've seen it happen in other settings, that you expect an officer to serve and protect, and they're like taking cover. They panic because they've never really been in that situation. So I would just say this. I know there's a lot of women on this detail. I know there's been a lot said about their stature. There's a lot of good reasons to have women on these details, in my opinion. One, they can easily blend into the crowd without being recognized. They work that undercover component very well. The other thing is they can virtually disappear in small areas that a man can't even get into, such as if you need somebody up in an attic space, a crawl space, a small space. Women can provide that function that are of small stature. So there's a lot they can provide. But I think, for me personally, if I'm in charge of this detail, knowing the size of the protectee, I would perhaps want a taller individual just to shroud him. But remember too, Tyler, he's supposed to be down right now.
Mhm.
He's supposed to be crouching, but he's almost 80 or close to 80, so there's just a lot of factors. I really have been disappointed to see everybody come down on these women. One couldn't find their holster with their gun, and then, their stature was at issue. But if you put a 5'5" man in there, you've got the same problem. So it's really not that she's a woman, it's that she's a short woman.
Yeah, and I have no issue with a woman or that she's short. I do have an issue with the one in the back saying she doesn't know where she's at or what they're supposed to be doing. I have an issue, and that's not because of her gender. That's just because of clearly somebody that wasn't prepared for fight or flight and hadn't been battle tested.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's what I was saying. That's where, it's fine to have a woman. They go through all the same training. Everything is expected of them, their marksmanship, their ability to act under these harsh conditions. But she did not pass that test. She certainly, she's going to be getting a lot of scrutiny, and I doubt we're going to see her on a high profile detail again.
Yeah, well, she certainly wasn't with him at the Republican National Convention. I looked.
Obviously, a huge security concern there. People were screaming. Still unclear exactly what happened, but very big security.
See how this person has no field of fire?
Mm-hmm.
He's looking all around. There are not the proper amount of people on this stage. It should literally be 4, and they should have those specific fields of fire we talked about, because other than that, it's not safe.
Right.
And then they should be covering those fields of fire so this unit that has their protectee can move without worrying about being shot from behind.
I have I'm going to put up, just now that we're kind of to this segment, I have a different angle of this that's rarely been seen. That's not what I meant to click on.
You're
Wait,
so
hang
good
on.
at this, Tyler. You
Yeah.
really are. These are the best visuals that I've seen up close, and how you've put all this footage together is really good.
Okay, so this is from that backside. Whoops, I fast forwarded. So this is going to be coming from someone on that bleacher stand from that backside.
Right.
I
See
mean,
these guys?
yeah,
Why isn't he? Why isn't he here? They're finally a little bit getting into position, but he needs to be there. He needs to be on the details other side.
right,
See what I'm saying?
right.
You've got this one here. At least you have 3 now. I don't know what she's doing exactly.
I don't know either. So he's kind of like, here's where they're trying to get to. There's a man, obviously you see ready to. This guy's ready. I mean, this man is the
He's
door.
ready.
The door agent is ready.
Door agent. At least he did what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to get that door open and ready. I don't know what this is walking around.
I know.
He's got his backpack.
He looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. I doubt he's Secret Service.
You see that woman under the stands? That's the first time. You're going to see the shoe right here, too, by the way. This is just, we can stop right here for 1 second. What this is the perfect example of a team that has not practiced and rehearsed what it would do in a bad situation, what it would do to get your protectee off the stage. That's what I'm seeing. Nothing's reversed. And, you know, I've said before on air that the job that they did to get him down and to cover him in that human shield, I thought was done really, really well. But all of this machinations, a little rough.
It's rough. Clearly somebody's been injured there.
Yep.
Could be that man that we pointed out from the banister.
The white. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That's my guess. We go medic. Need a medic. And up. Wait, fight.
See, so now the crowd is pumped up. They're not even at all with a safety concern. They're shouting USA. I mean, that was one of the biggest things that stuck out to me is the reaction of this crowd.
Mm-hmm.
I know they were confused, but at some point they realize he's been shot and they're still just standing up like normal. There's a couple, did you see, hiding underneath but most of them are, you know, seemingly not worried at all about getting shot.
It's very interesting. It's almost like, again, the countenance of the authority in the space makes a difference. And so I do think that Donald Trump sort of like, hey, I'm going to fight, made the people feel safe, even though it was an unsafe situation. If he was panicking and running out, there would have been fear that hit the room.
Well, Tyler, I'm glad you brought that up because the composure and sort of the might that Trump had, I mean, you never know how somebody's going to react if they're shot. Mm-hmm. He took it. Wow. I mean, to me, I was really, whether you like Trump or don't like Trump, I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about Trump. He took this shot like a warrior, unfazed.
And this isn't the first time either that he's had this kind of thing happen.
So, folks, here's what happens. I will call up Carrier, the president, because I have to do it myself. I know it's not.
So see, okay, stop here. See, at least on this one a little bit, but you had this guy come up, he's looking that way. They still are a little bit confused there, but you saw what they were supposed to do, I think, and then they broke away from it.
Yeah. He goes back to the same thing. He said in this moment, he's like, well, I could have taken care of it myself, but I got to give a speech.
Thank you for the warning. I was ready for him, but it's much easier if the cops do it. Don't we agree?
I mean, and then again,
coward.
this is an example that happened in Reno. Same kind of a thing.
North in Reno, when Secret Service agents rushed him off the stage in the middle of his stump speech. There was some commotion in front of the stage. Someone, probably Secret Service agents, started yelling, "Gun, gun." Agents.
So there's two other examples of Trump being in this situation.
But if I can stop you there, did you see what they did? At any sign of trouble, they grabbed him and got him to a hard area.
Yep.
And that is just not what it all happened here. I'm dumbfounded. And it's really comes down to the on-scene commander. Right. That's who's really the buck. It stops with the director, definitely, because she's making the decision who are these on-scene commander. But the on-scene commander there, I don't know. I mean, my mouth is dropped.
Again, that person likely, I think that's the person we recognize as injured from that other video.
Yes, the guy who just went down.
Trump doing his chant.
See, they're still, I mean, what really surprises me here, obviously, is this time lapse. It's just taking forever. You saw how they got him off the stage in the other clip, 2 seconds,
right?
Maybe 3. It's been an eternity from a tactical standpoint so far.
It was like 1 minute and 40 seconds, I think. Look at here's the point that I was trying to make about that stripe, the star and the blue and the red, white stripe.
Uh-huh.
Look at the one on the ground. It's transparent. And then you look at the one on the stage and there's clearly something blocking the light.
Oh yeah, I agree. There's something in there, but I think it's decorative, on both sides of it, and in the middle.
In the middle, there's something there.
Yeah,
that's they just put decoration over the top of whatever it was my thought.
See that? I think that's part of his shoe. I saw the footage where. Do you see that down on the ground?
Yes, I see that right here.
You're right there. Yep, I saw those shoes come down. I think that was part of assault.
I wish this camera was on it right here too, because he pauses again at the end of the stage to do more fist pumping. I don't understand how that's even allowed.
Well, I will say they're very hard to control, and I also will say this, Tyler. It's hard as somebody who's been in those shoes. You know, I hate to sit here on Monday morning quarterback and say I would have done it perfect and look at all these mistakes, because at the end of the day, they did get him out of there. I'm talking about this part of it now. I'm not going to lay off the whole planning and
low roof
thing, but I'm just talking about from here. It is so hard to control some protectees. They just don't want to listen. And Trump is one of them. But Trump is I mean, I'm just going to say it. He's inspiring in this moment because he's just like, try and shoot. I mean, it makes you wonder, geez, is he all there? I mean, most people don't act like that when they're getting shot.
Well, one thing that we've known about Trump is in the face of adversity, and this goes back all the way to the 80s, he gets stronger. When he was dealing with bankruptcies from his corporate casinos that didn't work out, and there was issues there because some of the people he worked with tragically died in an aircraft accident, but he got stronger when he went through his very public divorce with Ivana Trump, and he was on the front page of every headline. He got stronger whenever he was impeached as president. He got stronger whenever he was having to face all of these felony counts that are questionable from a lot of measurements, he got stronger. And so for me, I'm not surprised to see him. I think it's one of the most iconic moments of our lifetime. And I think 100 years from now, when we're all dead and gone, except for the babies that are alive right now, they're going to live to be 120. We're not going to be able, they're not going to be able to not talk about this moment.
Oh, and that's what I think you alluded to it too. It doesn't matter whether it's Biden or if it would have been, Kennedy. It doesn't matter. What matters is the moment, because in our lifetime, I've seen 2 attempted assassinations now, right? That's unusual, right? Reagan and now this one. But most people never see more than one in their whole lifetime. There's normally not a complete breakdown of security like this. And in all of those instances, it was the same situation, Tyler, to be honest, breakdown of security.
USA.
Where is this from? A person, a bystander that took
Yeah,
this?
this is from the man that was in the bleachers behind Trump. And he's got his phone out, like my hand is representing his phone, filming. People thought I was just making a weird symbol, but I was pretending to be his phone.
Wow. He does a pretty good job.
I know. I wish a couple times I wish he would turn his phone, but yeah.
See how this is how it should have looked, but about a minute and 30 seconds ago.
When he's in the high line of visibility where he actually did get shot in the head, he should have been crouching like this.
Yeah, they're crouching, but they're pushing, they're moving him, they're getting out of there. And you can see here, this woman is tall enough to protect him, crouching.
Right.
See, they're even, because she's standing more upright. So the whole woman thing, I think, has been completely blown out of proportion. And for all these people saying, well, they put women on there because they didn't care if he got shot, or, that made it lesser of protection. I just disagree. But then again, I'm a woman.
Well, you're a woman who did this exact job for somebody that's very high profile too, and is also very tall. Something that I noticed that's interesting about the situation in Reno that I showed you, which was the one where he was inside, he immediately crouched. He knew the protocol, and it's almost like he's either himself in shock and not able to respond how he wants, or advertently choosing not to. But I know he knows he's supposed to crouch because he did it in the prior times where this type of thing took place, and he's doing it here.
Well, I think that one of the things is he was just shot. And I know everybody wants to say, not everybody, some people want to say he wasn't really shot. He was grazed. You can call it potato. That bullet creased his ear and I think cut his ear, from my understanding. It might not be fixable by stitching it, but I think it's going to end up being like an Evander Holyfield ear, right? He's got a little niche there. That's how I see it in the pictures I've seen.
That's kind of what everybody's thinking, unless they, were able to do some kind of like cosmetic reconstruction. I always used to wonder what I would do if I was in the ocean and I saw a shark come near me, and I was in the ocean and I saw a stingray that I thought was a shark, and I totally froze. I think I maybe screamed and froze. And I'm like, now I know what I will do. And I don't think that's probably the right technique to survive if there is a shark. And I go to Panama City Beach sometimes where there has been, unfortunately, quite a bit of shark attacks. But the point that I'm trying to make is there's something about not knowing how you'll respond until you're in the moment, and then actually being in the moment prepares you to respond better the next time you're in the moment, right?
Yeah, and he's had multiple instances. And like you say, he's, I think, the most hated person maybe in the world right now. Even though he's also beloved by many, there are people that vehemently hate this man.
Mm-hmm.
He realizes he's a target. And I think that gives him courage, to just stand up and say, okay, everybody hates me anyway. I'm here and you're not knocking me down.
Right. Well, and even to that regard, the sheer threats against him are apocalyptic in nature. We've learned that the Secret Service had intel that the nation of Iran was planning to assassinate him on this very day. So on any given day, there's entire nations trying to take him down, and then there's disgruntled or confused or perplexed and evil people in America also trying to take him down. It's not like he's a beloved figure across the nation that is running for president. He's somebody who very controversial, served as president, had policies that some agree with, some don't agree with. And on any given day, there's dozens, if not hundreds of people that are attempting to take his life.
Absolutely. So okay, can you stop? And I don't know, but do you see this woman in the lead? She's looking all over the place. What is your field of fire? I mean, what is your responsibility? She should count on that there's people behind her looking that way. Even if they're not on this main detail, there should be those SWAT officers with the police vest guarding their 6, we call it, right? Their 6 o'clock. But she is all over the place. I'm not trying to be too critical of her, but it just seems like she's never really trained for a moment like this to me.
And that woman in the back's the one who didn't know where they were going.
Her holster.
That's where she's been criticized highly, right?
I mean, I don't like to nitpick things like that because I can tell you that it is hard. You know, I don't know what else to say, but it's hard for me to criticize these people because when you're in those shoes and things get hectic, you can make mistakes like not being able to find your holster. But I'm not even sure she could have just depressed her muzzle more. The muzzle awareness here was concerning. I would expected it, you know, her gun to be, you know, her hand to be on her gun, to everything be at the ready. But at this point, I don't even think they understand what they're looking at to make sure they're not shot at from. Does that make sense?
Felt like. Yeah, it felt like. Yeah. And you know, the whole sequence of events that we saw was 2.5 minutes. And then there's commentators like us that have spent hours watching 2.5 minutes. It's, in some ways, that's not fair either. But the biggest breakdown certainly wasn't what happened on that stage and them getting off the stage and into the vehicle. The biggest breakdown was, you know, why wasn't a roof? I'm just calling it a football field away because when you consider the end zones and the track, it's actually closer than a football field away. There was a shooter a football field away on a building that had a clear line of sight, and nobody secured the building. Nobody, even though he was labeled as suspicious and a threat, took care of this person, and that's the biggest breakdown.
100%. So we can nitpick, you know, what we just nitpicked, and I think you do that just to learn from it. Like I said, that video is going to be shown in every protection detail class over and over and over again. But if you don't practice and you don't rehearse, Tyler, that's what happens.
Well, I think too, part of it from just a normal citizen's perspective is that the Secret Service feels secret, and there's protocol and training that they have that we don't get to see in action, and this is an opportunity for us to see that. And so it's intriguing in that perspective. And then here we have a once in a generation moment happen that turned out to be, instead of incredibly tragic, unifying and inspiring. I mean, the Republican National Convention is this week, and it's been pretty contentious because it's kind of moved from a conservative agenda to more of a populist memorandum, and there's kind of been some dysfunction inside of that group of people. And instead of it coming out in dysfunctional ways where there's disagreements, you have a group of people that are unifying together. And that in itself increases just the iconic moment of what happened. It was able to bring sort of a nation together, whether you like it or not. It is the product of that. And so instead of something tragic, we have something iconic and shape shifting in our nation right now, and there's an intrigue that comes with that.
I agree with you with everything you said, Tyler, but I'm going to add something. I'm going to add that I think this was so tragic because firefighter Corey is dead.
That's right.
And the other two individuals, Mr. Dutch, I believe, and the other one has a difficult name. I've got it written down right here. Mr. Copenhaver. Mr. Copenhaver and Mr. Dutch, who knows what injuries they're going to have for a lifetime.
Right.
You know, I believe one was the stomach and I think the kidney. The other, I think, was an arm, but they were both at one point in very critical condition. I think they're stabilized now. But my point is, those are conditions they'll be dealing with the rest of their lives, likely. And so it was tragic and unavoidable, and avoidable.
Unavoidable and avoidable. And PTSD. I was serving in the Philippines on a mission trip one time, and there was a major earthquake when I was in a village that had literally no outside communication. There was a TV, there was electricity that was only ran on generators, and it was pretty significant earthquake. There was flooding and after effects, and the whole island shut down for several days after. And then I remember being back in America and like feeling ground shake at certain times. And it takes a little while to recover from being in that. I just felt like even when Donald Trump was walking back into that stadium for the RNC, you almost got a glimmer of like, is there a little PTSD on him from reemerging back into this crowd? And just imagine being in those bleachers and the man next to you did go down, going back into a crowd. So you're right, it is tragic in more ways than once. There's a loss of life, and our prayers are with that family. There's injuries for people that maybe still be in the hospital, and then there's PTSD or obviously stress for the other 25,000 people that were on the grounds that day.
Well, I think he served as a symbolism of how to take something tragic like that, and instead of being terrorized from the emotional situation they were in, he turned it around on the spot. I mean, he was really something. And I look forward to, I'm going to watch his speech because this is the moment he needs to unify this nation. This has been so polarizing and so angry and so bitter. And I hope he really takes, and it seems like that's the table that's been set, right? He's unifying every walk of life, people who hated him, Teamsters, we've got every walk of life up there coming up on the stage. I hope he unifies with the Democratic leadership as much as you can. I know some of it will just be smoke and mirrors, but it's better than nothing.
Right. Yeah. And I think if he changes his tone to be a little bit more positive, which is what the word on the street is from his son, Don Jr., who actually helped him craft his initial speech. They spent 4 hours on it on Saturday prior to this event, and then totally tore it up and writing a new speech that they say is a lot more positive. I'm interested in it as well. He does have an opportunity to right all the wrongs for all the reason that people haven't liked him for the past 8 years over. He gets an opportunity now to sort of course correct if so he chooses. And I think he can do that while still holding true to those virtues and values that are close to his heart. I do want to just give you one more chance tonight as we're ending our afternoon, as we're ending our stream. Anything else you want to add? Because you've been so insightful, and I feel so blessed every time you come on our show. I know you're a very busy woman, and law and justice contributor to News Nation and Law and Crime Network, and have your own YouTube channel called Break the Case with Coffin Daffer. And just consider it a huge privilege that from time to time you're able to join us. So thank you for doing that. But anything else about this you wanted to add?
Tyler, thank you for having me. As you probably know, I think you were the second. I went on a young lady from Scotland's channel a long time ago, right after Gabby Petito, and I think you were the second call I ever received. And when I looked up your channel and just saw what kind of heart you have and that you're trying to bring all these facts. Listen, I've been talking about this a lot on different podcasts and on News Nation. Gosh, you have the best. I mean, I've been watching these over and over, and I didn't have near the clarity that I did today even on it. So good job by you.
Thank you.
No, only that I really hope that this pulls us together in some way as a nation. I mean, we all know now that President Biden has COVID. I certainly hope him well, because we all
Me
know
too.
that COVID can affect detrimentally people with age, older people, and any pre-existing conditions. So I certainly hope that he's able to weather that, because from my perspective, he has been in terrible health
Right.
from what I've seen in terms of his mental capacity, his ability to shuffle and move and concentrate and even read and remember cognitively. I think he's been struggling. I'm not trying to say that from a political standpoint. I'm just an observer
It's
of fact.
obvious.
And so I hope this really can pull us together, and I hope Trump, because I think he will be elected. That's the first thing I said when I saw this happen. Um, I hope he leads from a place of compassion, and I hope he seeks to unify.
Me too. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Let's take a second and just pray for our nation. So, Lord, we love you. We are just so grateful for your protection on our nation. And Lord, I know that this could have been something that actually caused civil discourse and in a really unhealthy way for the next several months. And I do just acknowledge your hand on it. We thank you that we got to witness a miracle. And Lord, I know there's still tragic loss of life. And so I pray that there's just overwhelming peace to those families. Your word says you're close to the brokenhearted. So I pray that they feel a closeness. And Lord, we do lift our nation up. We put you at the center of it. We actually don't look to any politician, Lord, for guidance. We don't look to any politician to be messianic or to save us. We look to you, Jesus. And although we have honor and respect for what your word says, you select leaders of our nation. And so we honor you for that and we trust you in that. But Lord, we look to you and we thank you for being the one that brings grace and hope to our nation. And Lord, I bless Jennifer and the mission and call that you have on her life. Lord, I pray you continue to give her favor in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Can I tell people where to find me?
Yes, we're going to put a link to your channel in the chat.
Oh, thanks. It's just Coffin Daffer. No, it's not. That's my
Break the
Twitter.
case. Yeah.
Break the case with Jen Coffin Daffer, and I appreciate it again, Tyler. And I always love your audience.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining, and we'll be in touch again very, very soon.
All right. All the best.
Thank you. Well, that was amazing. What an awesome opportunity to hear from Jennifer and dive into, again, a credible perspective and topics on this. Certainly a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, and many things that she shared that I felt like were very informative and helpful. And just so appreciate all the super stickers that came in. Amy Heights, Kat Joy, Jennifer Swain. Kat Joy says, your guest is one of the best, in my opinion. Also, someone that since the very beginning of doing YouTube channel has always been so gracious to come on and give insight. And occasionally we'll talk offline about cases and things that were going on. And so I really appreciate that. And Catjoy, thank you for gifting those memberships. Janice Cochran, really appreciate that. Tipsy Gypsy says, I love Tyler now even more since he supports Trump and the United States. I just feel like more than I support Trump, I support policies that I feel like are biblical. And when I sort of align what the Bible teaches about perspectives, my interpretation of what the Bible teaches tends to line more up with the policies of Donald Trump than Joe Biden. I've spoke about that in depth on this channel and probably will continue to do so over the next several months. But it's incredibly inspirational what we saw happen with Donald Trump in the past few days. And I do think we need to talk about it. Thank you, Tipsy Gypsy. Linda Carlino, thank you. Thank you, Kat Joy. Amy Hayes says, great stream, great insight and perspective. Kat Joy says, Trump is my man and we love you, Tyler. We love you, Kat Joy. We appreciate you. Thank you. And Happy Caffeinated Couple says, thank you, Jennifer Coffindaffer, for being here. So amazing. Thank you, guys. If you don't mind, do go subscribe to Jennifer's channel. It's a great way to help support people like that when we have guests. She launched a YouTube channel not that long ago. She's been covering lots of things, including what's been going on in Rex Heuermann case, Brian Koberger case, Karen Reed case. She's been talking about obviously all of this stuff that's going on with Donald Trump as well. And so I would encourage you, Alec Baldwin case, I would encourage you to go check that out, check her channel out. She, I think, does a great job over there as well. Amy Hyde says it's about principles, not people. True. It is. It is about principles, not people. And we're never supposed to abdicate our responsibility as Christians or believers to a government or to a White House. It's never been in the cards for us. We're supposed to take personal responsibility and move forward in loving, meaningful ways. And so that's what I try to do, and that's what I encourage you to do as well. So anyways, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for being on the stream today. If you are a new member of our Feller Fam, welcome. We do have a Facebook group. We invite you to go be a part of. Just search Feller Fam on Facebook. Thank you for being a part of the stream. I've also pinned in the chat a link to my brand new devotional. I would encourage you, go check that out. Go pick it up on Amazon. It's a great way to be inspired, have a little bit of daily fuel to keep you moving towards that dream that God's placed on your life. Okay. Thank you guys so much, and appreciate you being here. And we'll be back again very, very soon.